Is Yemen once again heading toward a devastating civil war, as renewed attacks threaten to shatter the fragile calm that has held for years? Yemen's fragile 2022 truce could be coming apart as the Houthis launch a missile attack on a crucial port, raising fears that the conflict is entering a dangerous new phase. The Houthis reportedly fired 6 ballistic missiles toward a key Red Sea port, dramatically escalating tensions and putting renewed pressure on an already fragile ceasefire. Reports of people killed, wounded, and missing are emerging as Yemen's 2022 truce shows signs of collapsing, reviving memories of the country's brutal years of civil war. With threats of a comprehensive response now being issued, fears are growing that a new cycle of attacks could push Yemen back toward a much wider conflict. The United Nations is sounding an increasingly serious warning over Yemen's deteriorating security situation, raising the chilling possibility that the country could once again slide into all-out war. Iran-backed Houthis fired 6 ballistic missiles at Yemen's Mokha Port, according to a report by the Times of Israel, in a major escalation against a strategically important facility on the Red Sea coast. Mokha is a strategic Red Sea port controlled by Yemen's internationally recognized government, making the reported missile barrage particularly significant amid the country's continuing conflict. Yemeni military officials said the Houthi strike hit a vital civilian facility at the port, raising concerns about the potential impact of the attack on civilian infrastructure and maritime activity. At least one port security guard was killed, according to initial reports from Yemen's government, while authorities continued to assess the full extent of the damage caused by the missile attack. 8 people were wounded, while 2 Marines were also reported missing after the missile barrage, according to initial reports as authorities searched the affected area. The Yemeni military described the strike as a new terrorist aggression targeting a civilian facility, strongly condemning the Houthis for what it said was an attack on critical infrastructure. The Houthis, however, said their forces had targeted Saudi-backed military build-ups, weapons, and warships located in the Mokha area, presenting the attack as a military operation rather than a strike against civilians. Houthi military spokesman Yahya Saree vowed that the group would continue targeting Saudi military forces wherever they are, signaling that further attacks could follow as tensions remain high. The Houthi spokesman also said the group would continue striking Saudi targets, suggesting that the latest missile barrage could become part of a broader campaign against Saudi-linked forces in Yemen. The attack is part of a growing wave of clashes between the Houthis and Yemen's government forces, as rival factions continue to compete for control and influence across strategically important parts of the country. Fighting has intensified across front lines in Marib, Hadramaut, Taiz, Mokha and other areas, raising fears that Yemen's relative period of calm could be rapidly eroded by renewed military escalation. Yemen's Presidential Leadership Council has vowed a comprehensive response or deterrence, signaling that the government could take stronger military action following the latest Houthi attack. This comes as the United Nations says Yemen faces its highest risk of large-scale war since the 2022 truce, highlighting growing international concern over the possibility of a major new escalation. UN envoy Hans Grunberg has warned that further escalation could bring an end to the relative calm that has been maintained since the truce, potentially pushing Yemen back toward a much wider conflict. Grunberg has also warned that continued Houthi attacks in the Red Sea could drag Yemen into the wider US-Iran war, potentially transforming the country's existing conflict into another major regional front. Chaos across the Gulf and Red Sea is deepening as Yemen's Houthi rebels intensify pressure on Saudi Arabia, targeting the kingdom's energy infrastructure and maritime trade routes. The Houthi maritime blockade, announced on July 20th, has pushed parts of Saudi Arabia's oil export fleet to operate without publicly visible tracking signals amid fears of attacks. The Ansarullah-led Yemeni armed forces have described the campaign as a blockade-for-blockade strategy, presenting it as a direct response to Saudi restrictions on Houthi-held parts of Yemen. The group says its action is retaliation for more than a decade of conflict, airstrikes, and restrictions imposed on Yemen by the Saudi-led coalition. Tanker tracking firms are now offering conflicting estimates of Saudi oil shipments, because many vessels leaving Red Sea terminals are no longer transmitting continuous AIS location signals. This lack of reliable shipping data has left global energy markets guessing about the real scale of Saudi crude exports and the disruption caused by the mounting Red Sea threat. Saudi Arabian tankers have increasingly switched off their tracking signals to reduce their exposure while moving through high-risk waters threatened by Houthi attacks. Saudi Arabian crude export volumes can no longer be independently verified with confidence, as an increasing number of tankers operate without continuous public tracking signals. Ship tracking firms such as Vortexa, Plur, and AXS Marine are reportedly producing sharply conflicting estimates, while the IEA, OPEC, and traders rely on such data to assess supply conditions. For the week beginning August 3rd, 3 major tracking firms reached 3 different conclusions on Yanbu loadings, highlighting the scale of uncertainty surrounding Saudi export flows. These estimates are critically important because energy traders, international agencies, and oil market analysts use them to measure global supply and forecast potential changes in prices. An average of around 32 vessels per day reportedly passed through the Bab el-Mandab Strait last week, reflecting a sharp reduction in traffic through the vital Red Sea shipping route. That figure was down from roughly 50 vessels that crossed the strait per day before the Houthi blockade and heightened threat of attacks disrupted normal maritime movement. Saudi oil is now reportedly moving north through the Red Sea and toward the Mediterranean via the Suez Canal, as Riyadh searches for safer alternatives to threatened routes. Egypt's Sumed pipeline is also being used to move Saudi crude across Egyptian territory, allowing shipments to reach Mediterranean export terminals without transiting the full Suez route. Loading activity at Saudi Arabia's Red Sea terminals has reportedly dropped by around half since the blockade came into force, underlining the pressure on Riyadh's alternative export network. Turkey has confirmed that it is joining the Saudi-led multinational maritime defense coalition, strengthening Ankara's role in regional efforts to protect vital shipping routes. The coalition was formed to safeguard freedom of navigation and protect international trade and energy supply routes through the Bab el-Mandab Strait, the Red Sea, and the Gulf of Aden. The Saudi-led alliance was announced last month and has since moved toward its operational phase, with 13 countries completing procedures to formally join its charter. Ankara's participation also reinforces the Mecca Joint Defense Pact signed last week by Turkey, Saudi Arabia, and Pakistan, which commits the 3 countries to a collective security framework. Yemen's Houthis are reportedly weighing transit fees for commercial ships sailing through the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, according to Reuters. The proposal follows the Houthis' recent announcement of a naval blockade targeting Saudi-linked maritime traffic in the Red Sea. Regional sources told Reuters on July 29 that most commercial vessels could face the proposed transit charges if the plan moves forward. The sources said no timetable has yet been set for introducing the proposed fee mechanism for ships using the waterway. Reuters reported that Chinese-flagged vessels would be exempt from the proposed transit charges under the current plan. 2 regional officials told Reuters that Iranian officials discussed the proposal with Houthi representatives earlier this month. An Arab official said Iranian advisors later helped develop a body that would administer and oversee the proposed transit charges. If implemented, the proposal could give the Houthis greater influence over shipping through one of the world's busiest maritime trade routes. The Bab el-Mandeb Strait connects the Red Sea with the Gulf of Aden and serves as a critical choke point for global trade and energy shipments.
Upgrade your news experience with the all-new HT app. Download now.